Well, I'm going, and you're going? Yeah.
You should show up.
Mark,
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
be
gonna-
there. Okay, we are now back in session, and we have Lou Cataldo here with us. Lou, did you want to have a few minutes?
I got a call from my screening gal on the Mercy over Swarren committee, and she is inquiring, we're going to have the change of date on the Mercy over Swarren. It'll be in June instead of July.
Oh,
Really?
And what we're inquiring about is, she's asked me to ask you if, in putting together the package to make the maquette for the recipient, if we could count on the county putting in $100 into the account.
I'd like to move that.
I will second.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Very good, I'll tell,
Done.
she'll be delighted to hear that. And it's going to be held this year at Tales of Cape Cod down the street.
Oh, the bookstore.
They thought, we weren't getting too many people because of the parade.
Oh, that's true.
On the 4th of
It does
July
get a little
parade, so-
congested, right.
They thought perhaps we'd get more broader coverage. So I thought I'd let you know about that.
Okay. Do you have a date yet?
Yeah, what day?
I think it's the 18th, I'll let you know, Mike.
The 8th, that's a Friday or is it a Saturday? Is it still a Saturday or no?
I'll have to find out,
Okay.
I should know, but I just slipped my mind.
Okay.
The other matter while I'm here, I was, just thought I'd bring you up to date a little bit on, I've been negotiating with Mark on the, it's been a long drawn out affair, because I'm waiting for my attorney to get together with Mark, and we get together and draw up some kind of an agreement. And Mark told me about a room up there. I went up there and I took a few of our people there. And we figured that I'm going to be putting into it, through my donor, about $25,000 on equipment and things like that. And we're hoping we can get maybe a few chairs and things, desks like that if you have them around. I'll see Mark on that. And also, while I was over there, I went over to the county where I used to have my office, the bureau, the criminal bureau at the service center. And Mark was saying that's going to be empty pretty soon, or is it empty now, Mark?
Well, no, that's going to be used by Open Cape, remember?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, what I was
Open
getting,
Cape's going to renovate that building, but they're going to use a substantial portion of it.
will there be an opportunity to have a room there?
I don't know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the only reason...
And I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah.
But why are you asking?
Well, the reason I'm asking is we're relegated down there at the jail on the lower floor, and it's going to be kind of hard for people to come in and access the material that we're going to have there for view. And I was hoping we could get a floor view, so people come in and it'll be on the street level. And they've got an awful lot of material, filing cabinets and all kinds of equipment.
Well, Lou, there's a solution to that, but you know, that's part of the issue, is putting in a separate entryway, you know that.
Well, I know, but it's going to be a big expense, and it's still a downstairs floor. So I'm hoping and praying that we could find space on the upper floor, and it's going to take a lot of taking stuff in and out, and if we had an above floor thing, it would be a lot easier. I just thought while I was here I'd ask about the availability, the possibility of this police service center, having one room.
I think that once the plans are, we would know more of really the reality of that, of how that's going to be renovated
Yeah.
and how the setup is going to be. So we're not really, when you say, I don't think
We're just
we're really
We're
sure.
committed
Yeah,
to
we're
provide
committed to
that
them,
building to
and then
Open
to
Cape.
see what is available.
Well, the only
As
reason I'm
extra
asking,
space.
Mark, is that I don't want to go to all the trouble of bringing all that stuff down there, filing cabinets, chairs and everything, in the downstairs section.
I know, Lou, but, you know, we've had this discussion, and we had proposed a separate entryway. It would cost about $18,000, that was John's estimate, and, you know, that's what was on the table. And I know
My backer.
your backer didn't like that option,
No.
but I can't help that. You know, I thought we made some good accommodations to you, we had a nice room. I don't know what else to say, Lou, I really don't, I'm at a loss.
Is it because there's stairs? Is it because it's not handicapped?
No, well, that's what we were gonna do, we were gonna
Outside.
put in a ramp, we were gonna put in a separate entryway
Well, it would
downstairs.
take about $20,000.
It could have, you know, exit, you could have entry, you could have Sunday, Saturday hours, but there were some
Makes it more
issues.
available.
Yeah, make it more available.
Well, I'd do it in a minute.
I know Lou doesn't like it, I think he has some issues from
From a
people
donor.
who back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm
I don't know what else to
hoping
say.
and praying is that we could get a one room up above so that I won't have to keep moving things back and forth. It's
But see, that even on the time frame, Lou, even if there were room there, it's at least 2 years out, minimum 2 years out, I would say.
the building's empty now, isn't it?
Yeah, but Open Cape's gonna renovate it, we're not putting anybody in there.
Yeah, we're not
while
putting
they're
anyone in there right now. That's
Yeah.
that's been a partnered
Oh, I-
agreement, so it's not really just
Part
ours.
of the federal grant too.
Right.
It's that they can use.
So they
that
have to, and that's
Well,
going to be that.
I don't know. I just have to see what I can do about getting my sponsor to. We don't have a figure that on that, Mark, do we?
Lou, I had said to you, time and time again, John's estimate is 18,000. But we're gonna it's not gonna be that if it's less. It is what it is. And if it's less, you'll get charged less. If it's more, then it's more. That's just, we're not out here to make money off
I
of this thing.
understand, but if my sponsor doesn't want to do
Yeah.
it,
I
then
know,
I'm stuck, that's my problem.
I know.
Right. Well, let's see what happens with Open Cape and their plans of renovation,
Yeah, that'd be
and we
nice.
can revisit.
That'd be
Don't
nice.
you think?
Yeah,
if
we
there's
can
any-
try talking with Dan
'Cause they
and
may
just
be,
seeing what his
it may-
needs might be.
There may
But
be some space, and we're not sure how that's going to be utilized, but we can keep that in consideration.
Thank you very much.
okay, Lou.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Okay, Lou.
Thanks.
Okay, Mark, you
All
have
right.
the floor.
Excellent, and I do have, I don't know, Dick, if you want a copy of the presentation, I do have an extra one. This is a presentation that, I apologize, I was planning on giving to you last Wednesday. And I had a little bit of an emergency at home, so like 5 inches of water in the basement, so unfortunately I wasn't able to be here. But I'm also going to give this presentation to the town administrators tomorrow, and to the Collector and Treasurers Association at their spring meeting in May. And what it's about really is, there's a couple of proposals at the State House on pension reform, and also I'm going to talk briefly on municipal relief proposals that are at the State House right now. But before I do that, here's some background on the retirement board. Those are the members, which I am the chairman, and Pat is the commissioner's appointee. And just to give you some background on the retirement system, we have about 5,300 active members, about 2,400 retirees and beneficiaries. And as I have mentioned time and time again, we are an aging population. There are now 105 retirees or beneficiaries who are 90 or older, and that's up 13% since the last time we did an actuarial study. All of these numbers are out of our most recent actuarial study. Again, in terms of retirement benefit, our average annual benefit for the county's association is about $17,800.
I think that's a big number that people should really pay attention to.
Should, yeah,
That's
I
the
agree.
average
That's the average pension.
pension that
Right.
those who retire from Barnstable County receive.
Yeah.
Nice remember, Karen.
70% of our retirees or beneficiaries are receiving less than $22,000 in annual benefits. I think $22,000 is about the statewide average
Yeah, I think
for
it
pension,
is, yeah.
for a pension from the...
And the problem is that there are a small group, or there are a number of people who take advantage and try to work boondoggles with the pension system, and some of them are very successful at doing it. But the majority of people, even in the state, receive only 22,000.
Right, and that's the ones you hear about, are the ones who
Are
are
the
in the
ones
newspaper all the
that
time.
have gamed
Yeah.
the system,
Right,
exactly.
exactly, that's a good point.
And indeed, that's less than what many people receive on Social Security benefits for working the same period of time.
And they're not eligible for Social Security benefits unless they have, or if they are eligible
They
and
are
receive it, then there's an
significantly
offset
reduced, yeah.
because,
Well, and actually, that's a good point, Bill, because these last two bullets, I wanted to point out that it's actually, the way the public pension system works in Massachusetts is actually a pretty good deal for the taxpayer and for the public employer. First of all, on a Group 1 employee, a lot of studies have been done that figure that about 75 to 80% of their total lifetime benefit will be paid for by the employee and their contributions. So most of the pension is not coming from the taxpayer, it's coming from the employee's own contributions. And just to illustrate that on a normal cost basis, that's the cost that I contribute as an employee and the employer contributes to the pension piece. The employee pays 9.2% of the payroll amount. The employer is only paying 4.6% of the payroll amount. And why I said it's interesting to point out Social Security, I believe Social Security is a 6% percent of payroll contribution on the employer. So it's actually cheaper than a system that's under the Social Security system.
right. And the employees, when you think about what the employees, not 11% of their income today, isn't it, goes to the pension.
Yeah, exactly.
Nine,
Right now,
well,
it's true.
it's 9%,
of the
but
base.
if they earn over $30,000, then there's another 2% added to that. So how many people in the private sector take 11% of their income and put it toward retirement? Not too many.
Not too many, no. And just to touch on our investment
You can
performance
see I have
from
a
last year,
bias
this is
here.
as of 12/31/09. We did have a good year last year, as contrast to the previous year. For the quarter, our PRIP fund allocation was up 3%, and for the whole year, it was up almost 18%. We have a couple of other real estate accounts that we were not able to close when we moved our funds to the PRIP fund. The PRIP fund, as you know, is the state's retirement investment group, the Public Reserve Investment Trust Fund. The real estate funds have not done so well. Over the past year, real estate really took a hard hit in the investment market. So those are down still. But overall, the total fund for last year, we were up just over 17%. So we're getting back on track in terms of our investments. Now, just to talk about pension reform a little bit, this is House Docket 4825, and really what the pension reform does is it does a couple of things a little bit differently than previous pension reform efforts. It splits some of the reforms into two categories of employees. One's new hires, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, and then current employees, and there are a couple of impacts on current employees in terms of the pension reform. But these reforms would impact only new hires into the system. So what this would do is it would cap your maximum pension it would link it really to 43% of the federal limit. And really what that means is when they go to calculate your pension on your highest, which might be 5 years, it's linked to 43% of the limit of federal pension, which I think in 2009 is $250,000. So 43% of that is, what, $108,000. So they would figure your pension for those few who this would apply to, and it's not many, at $108,000, even if you are making substantially more than that. So it does cap your maximum pension. It does raise the full retirement age, that age where you can earn your maximum benefit on retirement, which is 80%. It raises it by 2 years, so for a Group 1 person, that would go from 65, which it currently is, to age 67. It increases the average that they calculate your pension on your 3 highest years. It increases that to an average of your 5 highest years. It does eliminate the termination retirement allowance. There is a provision currently in,
Excuse me,
yeah,
what about people that are already in the system?
this is what I'm saying, Bill, that's why I pointed this out. New hires. So
Okay.
that's for new hires. So for people who are currently vested in the system, vesting at 10 years, this would not impact. These particular provisions would not impact them.
But if you haven't been in 10 years, this doesn't apply yet.
It would not
No,
apply.
so
no.
you, okay, what I'm
If you
saying
were
is,
not vested, then I believe it would.
this would apply
Yeah.
if you're not 10 years already, okay.
Going back to the termination allowance, remember there is a provision in there that if you're terminated from your position, there is a provision where you get an increased retirement benefit. That's eliminated. It does increase the age reduction factor for earlier than full retirement. There's a factor that's applied if you retire earlier than at age 65 currently, which will be 67. And it does increase that factor from 0.1% per year to 0.125% per year. And effectively what that does is it reduces your retirement benefit for those years that you retire ahead of what your full retirement age would be. But it also, because it reduces some of these pension things, the 5-year average, the age factor average increase, those tend to reduce your retirement benefit. They also reduce the Group 1 contribution rate, as you mentioned, from 9% to 8.5%.
Now, what about the age 55? If you were vested, say, is being vested now 10 years?
It's a 10-year vesting.
It's still at 10 years.
Still 10-year vesting. Age 55 only comes into play if you're Group 2, 3, or 4, where you have certain, you can retire at your full retirement age at age 55 if you're Group 4. But if you're Group 1, which most of us are, most of the working population in Massachusetts is Group 1, you'd have to be 65 currently, 67 if this should pass. And Group 4, I should just mention, is kind of a hazardous duty pay. For example, the guards at the county jail, those are Group 4, and most of them are hazardous duty. So there's a theory that they can retire earlier at age 55.
Police and fire and...
Police, fire, exactly. But current employees, there are a couple of provisions that would apply to all of us sitting here. It would prorate the calculation based on years of service in each group. Right now, your retirement calculation is based on whatever group you're in. For example, if you're retiring Group 4, even if you've only been there for 1 year, that's your retirement, is a Group 4 calculation. Doesn't matter if you've spent 29 years in Group 1 and 1 year in Group 4, it's all calculated at Group 4. If that was the last group that you were in when you retired. This proposal would change that and would calculate your benefit based on however many years of service you have in each group. It also caps your salary increase in any year within the retirement calculation period, that's the 3-year average, to 7% of your average salary of the preceding 2 years plus the CPI. So they're trying to eliminate provisions where in the last 3 years or so, usually it's your last 3 years that are your highest salary years, so that people are not artificially inflating their retirement benefit calculation. So they're trying to do away with that. But that may have some impact on, especially, police or fire who just settled a union contract. There may be some impacts, unintended consequences because of that salary cap increase. Some other provisions of the pension reform legislation, they changed the buyback provision. For example, if you have time in another service, in other public sectors that you hadn't earned retirement service for, you can buy that service back. Right now, you pay the average interest earned. It's, I think, 0.02%, which is it's called statutory interest. They would change that to actuarial interest, which for the Barnstable County system is 8.25%, because that's what we anticipate we have to earn every year in order to stay on our funding schedule. So they would change that provision, make it much less affordable to buy back service. It tightens section 15, which is the pension forfeit section. Tightened means it's much easier for a board to take away a pension for someone who's violated some of the provisions of their office or the laws governing their office. It requires Supreme Judicial Court judges to make contributions to the pension system. Right now they do not. And it requires cost analysis to be done by the legislature of any special acts. So, one of the reforms that they are proposing here is there are a lot of special acts that are filed at the legislature. Really, those are changes in the pension law that benefit one or very few people, and it would require that some cost analysis be made before any special acts are passed by the legislature. There's a provision in here also that I'm calling a 3.8C for health insurance premiums. This is a really, at least from my perspective, a nasty provision. Right now, your health insurance premiums as a retiree are paid for from the unit from which you retire. For example, if I may work for 20 years for the town of Falmouth, but then I get a job with the county and I retire from the county, my health insurance premiums are paid for 100% by the county. Whatever contribution rate we have, which we have to be 75-25. This would calculate, I would retire from Barnstable County, but I've only been with Barnstable County for 1 year, say out of 20 years. So Barnstable County would only pay 1 year of 1 out of 20 if proportion of the health insurance premiums. The other 95% would be passed to the town of Falmouth, because that's where I spent most of my time. So that's really, I think, a nasty provision.
Well, wouldn't that also be sort of an administrative nightmare?
It's absolutely an administrative nightmare, because Falmouth may be 60-40 and the county is 75-25. Oh, it's absolutely, and you may not have the same health insurance plan offerings that the county. It's absolutely, it's an administrative nightmare. But it's in there. And they do, the pension reform also sets up another special commission to examine the pension system. So they're continuing the study of that pension system.
So an issue like that might come up again, and you'll see that that was not the best thought out way of doing it.
You mean the 3.8C for
Yeah,
health? I think
right.
that's going to receive a lot of, negative evaluation. That's my sense. It's a it's also an expensive proposal.
I'm surprised they didn't say that retirees would be required to go to the GIC.
Right.
It has not said that.
So plan design is still supported.
Well,
Plan
the
design
governor
is-
isn't supporting it, though, is
Well,
he?
but plan design right now is up to the individual unit, the town, fire district, whatever. Let me turn a little bit now to municipal relief. There's two different municipal relief proposals that I'm going to talk about. This one happens to be House 4439, and it's really the pension funding schedule extension. And this one it is a fairly good bill. There's a couple of provisions in it that I think need some tweaking. But basically what this bill does is it allows the pensions funding schedule, which is the schedule that we have to pay off all our unfunded liability on, to extend it for 30 years out to 2040 from this year. It does right now contain a no less than provision, and that's the provision that I have a bit of a problem with. What it says is basically that the funding schedule that you create, your new 30-year funding schedule, the first year can be no less than what you're paying now. And so it sort of does away with the whole concept of saving the town money by extending the funding schedule. I think that was the whole point. So that's a provision that I'm not sure what's in there. We're working to try to get that provision taken out. I think it might have had some, I'm not sure what its original intent was, but I think there's probably, if it did have original intent, there's some other way to do that. I'm sure they had some concerns at the committee that they didn't want to defund systems, but I think there's another way to do that. So If we can get that out, then I think we can actually extend the funding schedule and save the contributing units some money. But if that's in there, then that's going to be hard to do. It does limit year-to-year decreases in your assessment to 5%, but it also limits year-to-year increases in your assessments to between 4 and 8%. Right now, the county's retirement system's schedule is called 4.5% increase on a normal schedule, that is, assuming our investments meet our 8.25% annual rate of return. Every year, the funding schedule would go up 4.5%. Some years, and this year, going into next year, we've had a 10% increase. We wouldn't be able to do that under the new schedule. Would have to have an 8% schedule.
What effect, if any, does it have that you have to support the state's investment program?
It has nothing to do with the state's liabilities at all, Bill, in terms of what we have to fund. We don't fund the state's liabilities. The units who are in Barnstable County retirement system, all the towns on Cape Cod except Falmouth, who has their own system, we only have to fund the Barnstable County retirement systems, not the state's. What the proposal under 4439 doesn't do, though, is doesn't provide for a negative impacts after 10 years clause. There was some proposals out there that would really bifurcate the funding schedule, provide for a separate funding schedule if you had huge losses like we did in 2008 after 10 years of the new schedule went by. And it also doesn't provide for any OPEB inclusion. OPEB is the other post-employment benefits, which is really the health insurance calculation. It's the GASB 45, if you will, calculation. It doesn't provide for any inclusion of those into a funding stream. And that's a big negative. I don't know of many towns right now that are funding their OPEB liability. County certainly is not. Then the other big municipal relief package is H1971. And this does a number of different things that I'm going to touch on. One of the areas it improves is kind of regionalization tools. It does some things that clarify the cooperative assessing language and make it easier for towns to cooperate to do assessing services. It facilitates school district regionalization, and it simplifies the ability for towns to do intermunicipal agreements really in the collective bargaining area. That's been an impediment for a lot of towns to do intermunicipal agreements because they have their own separate collective bargaining agreements. They can't be waived. This facilitates the waiving of the collective bargaining provisions. Under municipal finance, it allows communities to do reverse auctions for services and for goods over $25,000. Right now, you can't do a reverse auction. You can only do a normal bid procedure or a normal auction procedure. Reverse auctions, they're also called Dutch auctions.
Oh yeah, the last one standing in the room.
Yeah,
The way it works is that everybody gives a bid, and then everybody's given an opportunity to give a lower bid.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
That's
and
exactly
keep on
right.
going until
you get the lowest price. There's only one vendor standing.
Oh, that's a reverse.
They used to use that a lot when they used to go in foreign markets.
Yeah.
It was a horror show.
It allows you to do that. They use them in the Dutch flower market. That's where I know.
Right, that's right, there you go.
It increases the construction payment bond threshold, which is a good thing for towns right now. It's required on everything over $5,000, and frankly, that's a pain for most, procurements in the municipality sector, and I think it raises it to a $25,000 level. It allows or facilitates municipal electronic billing, which is something that we've been looking at, and we are very interested in. It provides some provisions for local option tax amnesty.
What is that?
A local community could choose to provide tax amnesty, no penalties if you pay your outstanding tax,
that-
but those
oh,
types of
property
things.
Yes,
tax.
okay.
Property taxes
Yeah,
or any
yeah,
other
yeah,
kind of
certain
excise,
tax.
unpaid taxes.
Oh.
It provides the Renewable Energy Revolving Fund. Some of you have heard of PACE programs, where it really would be a program similar to our septic betterment program, where the town could set up a renewable energy revolving fund. They could make loans out of that fund for renewable energy or energy efficiency projects at the homeowner level. So a homeowner could borrow money, do energy efficiency projects, do renewable energy projects if they wanted to put up PV solar panels or put up a small windmill or whatever. And then they would repay that loan through a betterment assessment on their tax bill at the community level. So this is actually a newly popular, I think California is implementing a program, Colorado's implementing a PACE program they call it. So it provides for that type of program, and it extends the long-term lease ability of the community to 30 years.
Without having to go to town meeting.
Without having to go to town meeting.
Which is good.
Municipal relief on the employee benefits side, it eliminates the local option for Section 18, which is the transfer of eligible retirees to Medicare. Right now, that Section 18 is a provision in Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, that a town has to affirmatively vote and to accept Section 18. Then any of their retirees who are eligible for Medicare automatically go to Medicare. The county has done that, and did it long ago, actually. This would eliminate that local option, make it mandatory. Everybody who was a
Oh,
retiree.
everybody
You
has
happen
to.
to know when that would go into effect, because they're still chewing about that in Howard.
Bill, if this were passed, I assume this has a July 1st.
Except that Medicare doesn't take enrollments until January to March.
Yeah, so it would be
So it
whenever
probably
they're...
would be the first Medicare enrollment.
Yeah, it would be whenever they're
Yeah,
eligible, the
January.
first eligible. And I don't know if there's an emergency provision, so it also depends. If there's an emergency clause, then it's effective upon enactment. If not, then you have to wait. So it all depends on what the legislation says as well. It also provides for an optional early retirement incentive. That's a local option. They would have to choose to do an early retirement incentive. This time they've gotten smart, though. They limit the backfill provisions. So if a person in a position takes advantage of the early retirement incentive, the local board allows that to take place. There are backfill provisions for the salary that only, I think it's 45% the first year, 55% the second year, and 65% of that salary can be paid out in the subsequent 3 years. And they've done that because really the early retirement incentive, the only way to make it work is really not fill the position if you allow someone to take advantage of it. So.
Twice, you pay twice.
Again, in H 1971, there is a pension funding schedule extension, very similar to the one that I went over in the separate legislation. And this one also gives communities the ability to prorate insurance premiums for part-time employees. So you could prorate your contribution piece to part-time employees based on the number of hours relative to a full-time employee that they work. So if you have a part-time employee who works half, but they may earn eligibility for your health insurance, right now, as soon as they earn eligibility for health insurance, you have to fund your full portion of the premium, 75%. This would basically allow you, same contribution rate, 75%, but you'd only be paying half because that's...
So does that mean that the employee would pay more?
They'd have to, because you'd still have to... The
what
premium
about-
is the premium.
But 32B says you can't pay more than 50%. A town can't pay more than 50% of a premium?
I assume this, since it would be state
Overrides?
law, it would override 32B, exactly. So, yeah, because the
No, it means you can't pay less than 50%. That's what it
community
means.
is not supposed to...
You can pay 50 or more, but you can't pay less, the employer can't pay less than 50%.
Right.
So-
But if a community's 50-50 and you have a person who
Working 20 hours a week.
working half-time and they make your eligibility requirements,
Yeah,
then you can only have to pay 50% of the 50%.
Oh,
and they have to pay 75.
They have to pay, because the premium's the premium.
Right.
Yeah, if you're a member, you're a member.
but on certain employees, you could have the option of paying more if you wanted to keep that, say this person's 20 hours a week or 25 hours a week, but gee, they're really valuable.
No,
I'd say you could. I don't think this mandates that you have to do that. I think
Oh.
if you want to do, if you always
No,
want to do
but-
more, you can always do
but
more.
whatever you do, you have to do for all. You can't have different rates. You can't, I mean.
That I agree, yeah.
If you have
can't
a
say,
15
"Well, I
hour
like you,
or
then
a
I'll do
20
that,"
hour or
but-
25 employee,
Okay.
whatever that prorated rate is, it has to apply to everyone.
Right.
In
You
that
have to treat
category.
all eligible
That's
part-time
right,
employees
yeah.
the same.
That's the
Right,
federal
right.
law
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
require
You
you to do that.
You could not do that
Which I think is
otherwise.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
1971 has a bunch of other provisions that I'm not as familiar with because they really don't pertain to some of the retirement things that we're doing or to what the county does, but there's some election provisions in terms of providing more information to voters and how poll officials have to conduct themselves at polling places. There's some provision on schools, on sharing of superintendents and those types of things. There's some additional police training clauses in there. There's nothing on the Quinn bill at this point now. There's a clause in there to allow communities to set up regional cultural districts, and it provides for 2 additional studies going forward. There's a study commission formed on the local aid formula, and there's a study commission formed on county funding, which always makes me suspicious.
Yeah.
I think what that is some of the counties after the sheriff's transfer were very concerned about their viability because they didn't have many funding streams left. And I think that is, if you use the word sop to them, but I think that's what it really is to look at alternatives to maybe provide some funding to counties after the sheriff transfer.
Did they abolish Plymouth County?
I thought the commissioners did a vote to
Somebody
abolish
brought
themselves,
it up.
Yeah,
but
abolish
But I don't
themselves.
know if it happened.
yeah, the
Some
details.
You're not allowed to do
I mean,
that.
A guy brought
You vote
it up.
yourself out of business, you have to get that change in the statute.
Well, you could, I think you could, I think the
Well, there
Plymouth
was
County
no
Commission could
income.
vote to
They
say,
had no income.
we are going to explore putting ourselves out of business, but they'd have to file legislation to do that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what he proposed, one of the commissioners, probably to make
Was he
some
running
kind
for?
of.
So that's,
Pretty, yeah, that's a very long municipal relief package.
it is a very long municipal relief package. It has, which is over 100 clauses, I believe, in it. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, there's over 100 clauses in the total package, so those are out there. I am working with Senator O'Leary's office and Senate President Murray's office on some of these, especially on the pension funding schedule extension. I think that's an important piece. I think there's a lot of support for that out there because it does have the potential to alleviate some of the assessment costs for the towns. So that's where we are now, and I'll keep you up to date on.
Okay, this is, other things that are also contained in House Bill 1971. Okay, there's also issues that relate to municipalities and regional government. That perhaps you should make copies of that for everybody.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was at the Mass Municipal Association yesterday, and they brought up some things that we have to address. I believe this is the red flagging of what is our policy with regard to information that we hold that contains credit information or financial information. For example, if somebody has this on a laptop and it gets swiped, what is the policy that we have in place for that? And the federal law, although it was originally postulated in 2003, it's now being applied. So I gave Mark a copy of the summary that we've gotten up at up there, plus some suggested policy templates. And you'll go over that, I guess. We got an update and the introduction of the attorney at the that has been assigned by Martha Copley at the Attorney General's office, who is in charge of the open meeting law activity. His name is Robert Nasdor. He comes from Worcester. He does not have a background in this particular area. He comes from he was an advocate for the homeless and for issues that are related more to human service than this. However, to his credit, he did reach out to the Municipal Association to show his willingness to look at it. There were a couple of folks on our municipal and regional affairs committee that stepped up and said that they would offer comment before the full implementation, and I would suggest to you that is something that we could perhaps participate in before that. And by the way, for specific questions, his email address is robert.nasdor, Nasdor, at state.us, is it state.mass.us.gov?
So it's R or Robert?
Robert. Robert.
Wait, you get
Yeah, I
it.
think let me. But I think it's important for people to be aware that that this is underway. It's at state.mass.us.
State.ma.us.
MA.US, okay.
Yeah. And what is he entertaining questions about?
Yeah, he said
About
that,
what? Anything?
About the open,
Oh, about the
open meeting law. And-
enforcement, because up till now, you went to the district attorney, and as a
Right.
matter
Now
of fact,
it's
until
the
July
Attorney
1st,
General, right.
it would be to the district attorney, and the idea of having it drawn into the state, there would be a uniform application of open meeting law throughout the state, and that he has been specifically designated by Martha Copley to take that responsibility. There was a letter, thank you. There was a letter that was a press release, which I believe you can access by going to their website dated March 31st, where she announced his appointment, and he's responsible for education and outreach, and will be available for us to invite down. I would suggest you wait till he gets his more grounded, and we actually come up with the final version of the open meeting law, which apparently has more flux to it than we thought. And
Can I ask a question before you go on
Go
that?
ahead, sure.
The ethics situation, the ethics law is the one that really gets all the towns, and because volunteers, I mean, anybody that's has anything to do in a volunteer capacity.
I can
which is
segue into that because
Oh,
that was
good.
also brought up.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and this
okay.
is this is also available on on their website. But they are now the Mass Municipal Association has been identifying people that can be excluded from having to participate in that because of all the blowback, and we are also, as members of MMA and members of that particular committee, we can make suggestions as to whether or not there are certain individuals or certain committees that could be excluded. For example, poll members. When you do the poll, under the absolute application of the original one, they'd have to do it. But clearly they're very part-time type of employee, and that's one of the ones that have been excluded. And there are others, and I think that because of the action of of MMA to try to get them to look more carefully at this, I think we might get a little bit more common sense as far as the application.
Example, is that a list of those that they're in that paper that they're
Actually, this is
excluding?
I think this might have some of it in there.
At
For example, library volunteer positions that employees reshelve books.
Right.
Okay, school volunteer positions in which employees come to school a few times a year to help with
Right.
parties and projects. It doesn't exclude them from not having to get quarried, because...
Right.
Okay. Volunteer positions in which employee pick up litter at parks and beaches or participate in town cleanup day. Senior center or parks and recreation volunteer teacher positions in which volunteers assist in an event such as 4th of July, selling tickets, engaging in face painting, and helping police the grounds. And these are some of the examples of ones that come up. And then other ones, poll worker positions, non-supervisory seasonal positions such as lifeguards and snowplow operators, substitute teachers who work less than 1 day a week.
You put that one in.
No. Well, actually, I work more than
Yeah,
1 day
you
a
do
week.
more than one day.
Yeah. Participant in senior citizen tax abatement programs pursuant to GLC 59, blah, blah. Senior Corps, the retired and senior volunteer program, foster grandparents, senior companions in comparable programs, medical reserve corps volunteers, which applies to us, I think, because we're coordinating that. High school, college, and graduate school students participating in summer and work-study employment, whether paid or unpaid. Participants in programs of the Department of Mental Health who are patients in a therapeutic program that includes employment. Thank God for that, because most of the decompensation occurs is precipitated by stress-induced events, and that certainly would be one thing that would contribute to it.
But those are all on the website.
Yeah.
That's on the
Okay,
ethics.
so it is on
And
the
then
ethics.
individual
For us-
vendors
for
and
us.
contractors and participants in volunteer programs whose names are not available or known to any public agency, such as...
No, let me just interrupt for a second, because for us, most of those don't apply.
Don't,
right.
For us, there is a clause in there that's more important, is for the advisory boards and committees. That's what most people are kind of stuck on. I have this advisory board who really has no policy-making authority, but they meet and they give us direction, blah, 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 and all that stuff. That's the ones where we really have to make the decision as to, and I think most of our advisory boards don't have to.
Well, the problem is that under the original promulgation of this, if as a housing authority, we had hired somebody to give us advice on, on finding a suitable candidate, that advisory board that we would appoint would be given credit for significantly influencing policy because of their recommendation, and therefore would come under it. So I think we have to be careful about how we define what the limits of authority of an advisory board are, and guard our ability to, let's say, to maintain the level of our authority in order to protect them from having to participate in this.
Okay, so it's on the MMA board, because I've had people ask me.
No, and actually,
This is on the ethics.
It's on the Ethics Commission.
the official
Okay,
website
okay.
of the Ethics Commission. And by the way, the SFI stuff still hasn't been updated as of
SFI.
yesterday. The statement of financial interest that we have to file before you can put your papers in for election. And they've raised the fines, by the way, but they haven't
That's right, it's
updated.
sometime in May, I got a
May
letter.
1st,
They're due.
they do. But
Right.
they haven't updated they haven't updated, so you can't do the 2009, and it's been in limbo since January. So, and I've made several calls, and the answer that I get is that apparently there had been someone that was running the agency who died, and and she never shared with anybody how everything worked, and they are struggling to try to resolve this and roll it over. My biggest concern is that many of the people who are required to file election papers, and they won't accept them
I mean,
without
financial papers, or election papers.
election papers, and they will not accept them without this receipt.
Right.
Will be unable to do that and meet the deadline that the state has required, and perhaps be liable for a fine because of their inability to move this forward. So I'm very concerned about that, because there are perhaps several people in the Cape that are looking to seek elective office.
Or more.
Anybody in mind, Bill?
Well,
Yeah,
in a very self-serving way, there's me and there's you.
yeah, it's true.
So they have it. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Thank
And
you.
the other thing that they talked about was an update on zoning reform, which, that's when we all get the jelly donut glaze over our eyes at town meeting. And, well, unfortunately,
It's true, that's
Yeah.
why they should, yeah.
They've taken positions on the
I
need
know,
of,
yeah.
on
I'm
the
in the
need of,
small seat.
was it 40B reform, but they're still basically in support of it, so that.
Oh, this is the MMA.
Yeah, MMA, so just so you know about that, okay.
All
So,
right.
and the most important thing is if you have anything to offer in terms of change, things you'd like to see changed in either the open meeting law or the ethics, and that we now have some places
Good.
to get in touch with to do that.
That's good.
Very good. Okay, speaking of membership to MMA, have we paid a membership to the Selectmen's Association? I think we need to.
I think so.
I think
No,
They
I
haven't-
think Larry mentioned it to me a couple
Oh, yeah?
of
That we haven't
couple
paid?
of meetings ago, and I
Larry
meant to
who?
Well, he
bring that
mentioned
up.
it,
Larry
he
Cole.
said I paid.
He's the treasurer.
So do we pay individually
Oh,
for that?
no.
Yeah, for that
You don't pay
association.
for me because I
Yeah,
paid
you're-
through the
you're-
select.
Okay,
Well,
so you
I-
paid, okay, so it's just
Well, no,
money.
no,
just-
the county paid for me.
Oh, okay, so I think,
We have to pay individually? I don't know, is the answer. So this is, why is Larry Cole asking? Is he-
He's the
Because
treasurer
he's
of
the
the
treasurer, yes.
association.
I'll find out.
so,
There's a
Yeah, if
meeting
you-
Friday
Yeah, I know.
yeah, I know.
Friday is.
I don't want to walk
think-
in like,
in
You
Orleans.
should, but I'll call Larry.
Yeah,
What
I'll
is
do
the
it.
topic, do you know? I
Um,
don't remember.
What's the topic?
I can't remember.
Is it
And where is it,
financial
where is it
management?
at?
I don't know.
Where is it at?
It's in
Orleans
Orleans
Inn.
Inn.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Nice venue.
Let me find out from Larry.
Yeah, because it has something to do with us, as I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was. Everything has to do with us.
That's right.
We have our fingers in many, many pies.
Right.
All right?
Nope, I think that's,
Is that it?
That's it
That's
for
all
me.
it is?
there was one other thing I just want to bring up that I'm working on, and I need a number because I don't have it with me. The overnight program for the homeless that goes with the council and churches. They, the overnight program is all of the churches, each church on one night a month or every 5 weeks, however it rolls out, hosts people who are homeless for one night. And that has gone on and it's been successful, and the areas that they have are sprinkled and fire safety codes are met and that sort of thing. I guess in Plymouth, they were trying to do a similar situation, and it was similar and yet different, whereas it was really more of a shelter, where people were staying consecutive nights at a particular place. And on one occasion, there was a safety hazard. Somebody had a cigarette and went on fire or whatever. So therefore, there has been a regulation put in place that prohibits churches from doing this, which affects
But I thought it was a regulation that prohibited them doing consecutive nights with the same people.
It is the consecutive nights with the same people, but for some reason, somehow the way it's, the language in it is now going to be preventing the churches on the Cape to be able to do this. So I have been asked
Are
to...
they not familiar with the Hunchback of Notre Dame and Sanctuary?
Well, this is exactly what I said. This is the argument that I'm trying to put forward, is that, to the beginning of time of the churches, churches have been a sanctuary, and there should be, but then, that's that. But then public safety trumps, I guess.
And indeed, they have to be, public officials have to be invited into the church to do that.
That's
They cannot-
exactly.
They do not have the right by law of entering the church unless they have an invitation from the church to do that.
I agree, but I'm not sure if Massachusetts is recognizing medieval law, or if that law really still
Yeah,
pertains.
it has a certain element of popery about it.
Yes,
doesn't
it does. It does. So it doesn't apply to all synagogues and Protestant churches, probably. But so anyway, I am pursuing that on behalf of the council and churches, and I have to. I had it at home, and I don't have it with me. If you
Well,
want fire
actually, that came
marshals.
up about several months ago.
It did,
I thought
and then
died.
it did die, but it is coming up again, and it goes into effect, I guess, June 1st. So time is of
Who's
essence.
promulgating
Tonight, we have the HAC annual meeting.
Tonight.
I wonder if they'll be mentioning that there.
I'm not sure. They could be.
Yeah.
Where is that tonight?
That's it over at St. Pius.
Is that the
Pius
dinner?
X, yeah.
Oh, Pius
over
X,
there.
okay.
Who's promulgating this? The fire marshal? State fire marshal?
I would like to speak to him about this, just to kind of get the particulars. And there is an appeal process, but the appeal, according to Alan Burt, who has
So the alms of the poor, the hard-wrought mite boxes that children
Why
contribute
don't you
during
have
the
this conversation?
just past season of Lent will be emptied in order to support this application of the will of the state
So what are
Going
you going
on
to
to
do about
church
it?
I'm not
property.
sure how it's, but
I'm
it
deeply
is
disturbed.
I would call
a
Senate
law.
President Murray's office. That would
No,
be my
there
first
is a
thing.
law. No, and I think her position is that it's law. So I want to see if there is a way to appeal for regional.
Well, appeal for social justice and mercy.
Well, Bill, get up there, man. You know, God.
Well, if I were intending to, to go over the bridge on a regular basis, I might be more excited about this.
Okay, do we have anything
I'm
else?
just letting you know
we
that
need
this
to
is a
discuss
little
today?
endeavor
I
that
have
I've
a
gotten
number of
myself
things.
into.
Okay.
Did you want to
You have-
mention a thing we talked about on Monday, kind of a rotating reporting
No,
schedule?
not yet.
Not yet, okay, not
Okay.
ready. I have the CMAD ordinance.
Yes, that's
the
right,
famous
you do, don't
CMAD
you?
ordinance, which I have for your signature and transmittal to the Assembly, if you guys are prepared.
Tell me what.
I
Well,
think
this
that's the next step.
state needs to have they need to have an ordinance from us on file so that they can
Can go
move it
forward.
from
Okay,
the state
okay,
level.
that's fine.
So this
I'll move
ordinance
that.
creates the CMAD, Board of
Committee.
Trustees,
Board,
we call it.
board of,
Good.
I think I call it the Board of Trustees.
You do?
I think so,
Okay.
yeah. To oversee
oh,
the
yes, you did,
CMAD
the
fund and
CMAS Board
to
of
establish
Trustees.
a budget.
There'll be three
to
trustees.
Blah, blah, blah.
A commissioner,
commissioner.
a rep from the hospital, and a fire chief, designated by the Chiefs Association.
Right.
Yep,
Okay.
commission, yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
All right,
And
you
then
have
we'll
a
work with the-
motion?
Second.
So if you
Okay.
could just sign that, we can
Okay, those in
transmit
favor
that to
say
the
aye.
Assembly today.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Motion carries. You can start, and we'll move
Thank
it
you.
this way.
I have a.
Are you bringing that to the assembly, or do I bring it?
You're bringing it.
I'm bringing it to the
Because
assembly.
I probably, at 4 o'clock, I have a meeting over here and I come back.
Okay.
I have a request to form the Barnstable County Information Technology Committee. And I sent you guys a write-up about the committee and its mission and its definitions and its goals and objectives, which I added when I added goal and objective number 6, periodically review the goals, objectives, and tasks to be undertaken by the committee.
Yes,
So,
to make sure you're on the right
If
track.
you could take a look at that, or if you want to
And
discuss
who-
it further.
I
or-
think I had meant, when you asked for comment, I think I made some comment. And the comment was that, well, did you get a copy of my comment?
I could have.
I didn't.
I don't
I didn't see
I
him,
don't
so I don't know what you're
Did you
telling
send it by
me,
email?
honestly. If you sent it, I was in Boston
All
yesterday, so I
right.
didn't see it.
I had felt that there should be, that part of this should establish, say, one of us to be a liaison to this committee or a member, an ex officio, not, not a voting member. I felt that since this sounded like a user committee, that you be a facilitator rather than a chair, and that one of the users be the chair of it. So those were my comments.
Duly noted.
Well, you know something, I think that some of those details could be left to the committee.
I think so too, yeah.
I think that you
It's-
can.
This
It's an
specifically-
internal working.
It's an
group, is
internal
what it is.
working
It's not
group.
a
I don't think
really
it's really-
official committee.
Well, I think for me to be the chair, to get it started and push, do
Right.
I feel like I need to be the chair forever? No, I
Well,
don't.
I
Yeah.
guess that was my.
Yeah.
Right, and I think,
It's
and
not
I do
something
think
really wanna
that,
do. So I think to start it off and get them going and get them
Well,
focused
actually,
on what
you
they
pulled
want
that
to
out
do.
of here.
what, that he
It
was the
said you'd
chair?
be the chair.
Good.
No, I think it's in there. It says here.
No, I kind of go with Bill. I mean, I think that maybe that should be voted on by the committee. Who should be the chair?
But he's just starting it, getting it.
Yeah. Well, maybe even just
Chair
for the
pro
first
tem
meeting, but I think that some of the
until-
rules and how it's going to conduct itself should be left to.
Okay, well, I guess the bottom line, and thank you for, for supporting me.
Right,
But,
I do agree.
The thing that I want to make clear is that we had this, we had this study, we all accepted the study and voted for it, and then part of this has to be, let's say, a swift implementation of the things that we already know, rather than spending a lot of time developing a 5-year strategic plan, which I think philosophically I have significant problems with, because it's like that's where you just sort of put off into the far future as to whether or not whether or not you see any results. In my opinion, we should be able to see an outcome within a much shorter period of time, and I would suggest that that you put on your suspense file that 6 months from the date of this, of the first meeting, that you come back with us with a report on progress as to whether or not any of the implementation of the stuff that we've already got in place has actually happened and where we are on it. So with that, if that would be noted in the minutes of this meeting, I would be happy to sign this.
All right,
And, sure, I'm with you.
good. All right.
Yes, and I think those are good suggestions.
Good, okay. Thank you very much.
Is that it for you?
I have two other things. I did a short cover letter. I did get the paperwork on the project for the Valley Farm Community Garden. Remember I mentioned that? So
That's where we're going?
yeah, the landowner has to sign off on their application with the state, so if you would sign that.
Okay.
And I did write a short
Is there
letter
any
of
ordinance
support.
involved in this?
Nope,
Okay.
no, as long as the
What do I
Bourne Conservation Commission is fine and they are supportive of this, that's not an issue. It is a permitted use under our conservation restriction, so that's not an issue. They just need the landowner to sign off on that. And I just have one other thing. Bob Troy, if you recall, we had that petition from the Boy Scouts for
Oh, yeah.
subdivision of land. It's kind of a procedural thing. Bob didn't see any issues or objections in the documents, so I just need you guys to vote your assent.
Last meeting. I think we looked at this before.
Yeah, I brought it up last meeting. It's the subdivision. I told you that Bob Troy was reviewing it, and so I didn't have you vote on it. He had since reviewed it. He goes, "I've reviewed the citation petition plan. I have no objections." Blah, blah, blah. That's all.
Okay. Do you have any other correspondence from Bob Troy about anything?
No, I don't have any others on that. I know there's a couple of questions on the Charter Commission before him, but before we change that, I just need you to vote your assent on the
What
subdivision.
form should the motion take?
You vote to, it says assent to the plan. So assent to the plan of the Boy Scouts as submitted on March 19th,
Okay,
2010.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no, motion carries.
That's all I have. I just want Karen to send it to
Motion to adjourn?
Actually, motion to
Recess.
To recess